Hi, you all. Happy Monday. For Meaningful Monday in your morning work, you're going to be focusing on the word recognize. So read the paragraph and see which of the answer choices has the correct meaning for how recognize is used in the paragraph and write that letter where it says click to add text. Synonyms or antonyms. Remember, synonyms mean the same. Antonyms mean the opposite. So if the words mean the same, like scholar and student, you would put an S or write synonyms. If they mean the opposite, you would write A or write antonyms. Then you have a couple paragraphs to read. And then your question is, what do you think most likely happens next? So you're making a prediction of what's going to happen based on what you've already read. So really it's going to be more of an inference because you're going to have some text to refer back to. So look at all of your answer choices and see which one makes sense and then write that letter choice in the box. For Multiplication Monday, you're looking at the number of groups that you have. That's already included. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 groups, and then how many are in a group. That's the number you're going to be focusing on adding because that's the number that's going to be repeated. Then you're going to find your total. This one, you're skip counting by threes. And then true or false, read the sentence. If you believe what they say is true, you're going to write true. If you think it's false, you're going to write false. And then your daily update. Okay, for reading this week, you are listening to Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun, which is about a girl named Lucy, and she has a favorite food that some people find odd. And one classmate in particular really gives her a hard time throughout the story, but there's a twist at the end. So I hope you enjoy it. After you listen to the story, you're going to be answering, who is Ralph playing with or sitting with when you see him in the illustrations? What does this tell you about Ralph? So remember, it's not only important to pay attention to the words in a story, but also pay attention to the illustrations, the pictures, because they're going to give you information that you may not catch from the text alone. So pay really close attention to Ralph and who he sits with and who he plays with, because that's going to tell you a little bit about him and what other people think about him. After you've listened to the story and you've answered that question, you are going to do a sort about Lucy. So Lucy is the main character. You're going to identify which of these words are character traits. 6 of them are character traits. 5 of them are feelings. And 5 of them are physical traits. So remember, physical traits have to do with the outside of the character's body. Could include their hair, their like long, short, the color of their hair, their cheeks, their eyes, how tall or short they are, anything about their physical body. Feelings are how they feel in a moment, not throughout the entire book. And character traits are qualities of that person. It's about their personality, and their personality doesn't change much throughout the entire story. Character inferences. So after you have really thought deeply about Lucy, you've done those sorts, and her traits are really fresh in your mind, I want you to make an inference about Lucy. So, for example, I would say something like, I infer Lucy is unique. And I think she's unique because she does things in the story that none of the other characters do. And instead of being ashamed of that, she's proud of it by the end of the story. So think of something that you notice about Lucy. It can be a trait or it could be a feeling. You just have to be able to defend your answer. So you need to talk about why you chose that based on something that happened in the story. Then you're going to focus on 3 events in the story. And this is matching character traits to actions. So the first one is Lucy cried because Ralph was teasing her. So there are 2 words that go with how Lucy was feeling. So one of the words I'm going to tell you is timid. She was feeling timid. She did not want to stand up for herself at first. So there is another word also that has to do with her crying as a result of being teased. So which one of these words below would go with that action? Then Ralph rolled his eyes at Lucy and her friend on the bus. There are 3 words that go with that action. Think about that action. Was that a nice thing to do? Was that a mean thing to do? Think about which words below here are negative, which means they're not good qualities. They're not things that you'd want to do. They represent Ralph's poor choice. And then this last one, Lucy confronted Ralph, which means she came up to him and told him that what he was doing was so mean. So there are 3 things, 3 different words below that go with that action, her telling Ralph that he shouldn't be acting that way. So if you're not sure about what a word means, remember you can go to Tools and Dictionary and look up the word. You can go to Google and look up the word, or you can ask a teacher and we can help you with the word as well. How else could Lucy have stood up for herself when she was being bullied? So this is just an opinion question. So what would you do if somebody was treating you the way Ralph was treating Lucy? And I gave you a sentence starter. Lucy could have, and then fill in the rest of that sentence. What could she have done? We're also going to be looking at connections. So we've done a lot of inferencing. Now we're going to start looking at connections. And connections allow us to understand stories better because when you connect with something, you retain it. And you can empathize with characters and you can enjoy stories better. So there are deep connections, and those are the connections that help you understand the text and the characters. For example, I felt the way Lucy did when Ralph bullied her. And then there are shallow connections. Shallow connections are where you have experienced something that's happened in the story, but it didn't involve much thinking and it doesn't help you understand the story or the characters any better. For example, my hair is curly like Lucy's hair. So here are 6 different connections. 3 of them are deep connections that would help the reader understand the story better. And 3 of them are shallow questions that don't really help the reader understand the story better. So read through those and decide, is that a deep connection or is that a shallow connection? And then the last thing you're going to do is write your own connection. So there are 3 different types of connections you can do: a text to self, a text to text, and a text to world. And if you click those audio links, I read what the difference are between the 3. Over here in the text box, whichever one you choose, leave that one there. So for example, if you're going to do a text to self connection, delete text to text and text to world and just leave text to self. So we know that's the connection you are making. Then where it's blue, you're going to write your connection. So for example, I'm going to do a text to text connection. This story reminds me of the story Bad Day, what was it called? The Bad Case of the Stripes, because both main characters were made fun of and got really upset, but didn't tell anybody at first what was going on. So that would be a text to text because I made a connection to a different book. And then I would write down that connection that I just said out loud. that is everything for reading this week. I hope you all have a great week, and I hope you enjoy this book.